Chapter 6. What? Why? What do you mean? Charles stared at his mom. He must have heard her wrong. Why would he leave Cooper at home? Cooper had to come to rehearsal. Mom put a hand on Charles' shoulder. Cooper and Buddy are getting along so well, she said. Don't you think he'd rather be here playing with his new friend? But he liked being at rehearsal, Charles said. He's a ham. He likes to make everyone laugh. That may be that as it may, said Mom. But Cooper's staying here. Mr. Green doesn't want a dog at rehearsal. It's much too distracting. It's one reason we're fostering Cooper in the first place, isn't it? So that Mrs. Davis doesn't have to bring him every time. Charles knelt down and threw his arms around Cooper's thick neck. He rubbed his face onto the puppy's soft fur and whispered into his big backed ears. You want to come, don't you? Cooper wagged his tail and panted into Charles' face. You bet I do. Charles, it's time to go, said Mom. Charles stood up. He was about to start begging for Cooper to come, but one look at Mom's face told him that there was no point. Her decision was final. Cooper was staying home. Oh, God. All cast members on stage, called Mr. Green, clapping his hands. We're gonna start with some singing today. And I want to polish up all our songs. Then we'll run through the whole show. Don't forget, people, this is production week. Dress rehearsal tomorrow. Performances on Friday and Saturday. It's almost showtime. Charles groaned to himself, but everyone else looked happy and excited. Mr. Green laid towards the piano. Mrs. Davis, can you warm us up? Charles trudged up the short staircase to the stage behind Maribel. He usually loved their singing warm-up, but today he just couldn't get excited about it. His stomach was fluttering, his mouth was dried, and he wished he were holding the script that was stuffed in his backpack, which was now sitting on his seat in the auditorium. How was he going to remember a single line or a single note of a song with about Cooper there? Miss Davis stood up from her piano. Ready, everyone? She asked when they were on stage. Then she let loose two long high notes. Sue-wee! Charles usually cracked up along with everyone else when she did that, but today he couldn't even smile. Sue-wee was a hog call, something Mrs. Davis had learned to do when she was a little girl on a farm. She used it as a singing warm-up ever since. Sue-wee! Everyone sang back. Mrs. Davis reached down to the piano and struck a note. Sue-wee! She called one note higher up before her. Sue-wee! They all sang back on the same note. Up and down the scale went until Mrs. Davis nodded and sat down to strike the first chord of the song. Stay away from those people from the second act. She played an introduction, then glanced up on the actors on stage, cueing them to come in. Sue-wee! Yodeled Charles. Earnestly, everyone else sang the first line of the song. Miss Davis stopped playing. Everybody turned to look at Charles. What? He asked. Oh, oops, sorry, Charles realized he hasn't been paying attention. If he would have been too busy wondering what Cooper and Buddy were doing and wishing Cooper were right there by his side, singing along with him, Mr. Green frowned. Let's take it from the top, people, he said. Is everybody ready? He gave Charles a meaningful look. Everybody? Charles knew his face was red. He nodded. I'm ready, he whispered. This time Mrs. Davis played the first notes of the song. Charles sang along, or at least he pretended to. He moved his mouth, but no sound came out. He knew he wanted to do the "Soo-wee" call again, but he was afraid he would get the notes wrong. He didn't want Mrs. Davis to have to start the whole song over again. After they'd sung most of the songs in the show, Mr. Green called everyone for a run-through of Act 1, Scene 4. Charles groaned as most of the actors headed off the stage, leaving him and Maribel alone. Now remember, this is an important scene, said Mr. Green. This is where the real story starts. Let's make sure the audience hears all the details and understands what's going on. Maribel nodded. Charles nodded too, looking down at his hands clenched together in his empty lap. Where was Cooper when he needed him? If he could just pet that soft fur and feel the puppies laying on his legs, everything would be fine. Fine. Maribel patted Charles' arm. You'll be okay, she whispered. She then turned to the audience and said in a loud, clear voice, You'll never believe what I saw up today by the waterfall. What did you see? Charles asked. He knew his voice sounded stiff and weird, but he couldn't help it. At least he got his line right. I saw Joseph and Faith kissing, said Maribel. Those were the names of the oldest boy in the Smythe family and the oldest girl in the Wetmore family. Their secret romance was about to become public. And help change course of history by bringing the families together. Our brother and Faith Dombrowski. As soon as his line came out, Charles knew his line. Dombrowski was the last name of the actress who played Faith. Charles moaned and put his face in between his hands. He then looked up to see Mr. Green shaking his hands. I mean, Faith Wetmore, Charles finished lamely. I'm sorry, Mr. Green. He saw Mrs. Davis get up to whisper into Mr. Green's ear. Mr. Green nodded. Take 5, he said tiredly. He waved at Charles. Come talk to me. He patted the seat next to his. A few minutes later, Charles was on the phone to his mom. Mom, he asked, can you bring Cooper down here?